Welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast, folks. We have a great show in store for you today. We sit down with a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, singer-songwriter. But first,
hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Today with Tally. The mission and goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Today with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the evening, Mr. Brian Towner.
Our next guest is a Marine Corps veteran and a singer-songwriter. This is somebody that literally taught herself how to play the guitar while hiking the Appalachian Trail. And with that, we are honored to be joined by singer-songwriter, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, Barbara Sim. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Another day, another podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Of course, I've heard a lot of good things about you. I think we've been connected with some other fellow veterans out there that are doing the same thing as you. They're singer-songwriters. I believe that you were just out in Nebraska not long ago.
I went to the Hero Stock out in Lincoln, Nebraska. It was good.
And you were on stage?
I wasn't initially supposed to sing, but they offered to let me sing for a couple songs in between sets. So I did get to sing about 3 songs for them out there. And they're talking about bringing me back for next year.
Awesome. So you have a very interesting story. 2016, you hiked the Appalachian Trail. And when you were out there, some healing, I believe, happened. And you also brought a guitar with you?
Yes, I brought a Martin Backpacker guitar.
But you didn't know how to play when you started, right?
I knew about 3 chords that I'd learned a couple months before I started hiking.
And then you went on this journey and you came back a guitar player.
A basic guitar player, yes. I was able to accompany myself, and I did my first gig probably after I got back. And then I moved out to Colorado and I started gigging full time. And I was out there for about 4 years, just playing gigs all around Colorado and Wyoming.
What led you to get a guitar and go hike the Appalachian Trail?
Well, music has always been a part of me. Like, I've always loved singing. It's always been my stress reliever. I feel this energy kind of building up inside of me, and the only way to get it out is to sing. But unfortunately, for a long time, especially after Okinawa, I used drunken karaoke to sing and get that out of me. But that wasn't good for me. And I knew that I needed to find a healthier outlet. So in 2015, I found Creative Vets, which is an organization that helps veterans. They connect them with songwriters out in Nashville, and they tell their story through a song. And I went out there in February. So I found them in 2015, and then I went out there in February of 2016, and I did that program. And then March of 2016 is when I started hiking. So I found that healthy outlet of songwriting, but I didn't know how to play guitar. So I knew I needed to learn. And I'd actually had a guitar sitting in my living room for probably about 8 years, just sitting there. Like, I never learned how to play it. I was always like, one day I'll learn how to play that. But I just thought, oh, it's not really for me. I'd pick it up and I'm like, oh, I can't figure it out. It's not for me. And then one day I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this. This is my lifeline. This is what's giving me hope right now, like music and singing and songwriting. And so I forced myself to learn the guitar. And I practiced probably 3 or 4 hours every day for like several months. And then I hiked the Appalachian Trail, and I brought the Martin Backpacker with me, and I practiced every day while I was hiking. And I wrote some of my first songs on the trail. My first one was called Miracle Baby.
Miracle Baby.
Yeah. I almost died when I was born, so they called me a miracle baby.
Love it. So I got a few things. That guitar that was looking back at you for 8 years, that probably became a statue in your house. I'm guilty of that. ellipticals have always, you go out and you get an elliptical and you're all so excited. You stare at it for the next 8 years and you try to sell it for what you bought it for and you're stuck.
Yeah.
I don't have an elliptical. I just go out and walk. But I definitely know, what that feels like to just stare back at something. You're like, man, am I ever going to use this thing?
Yeah, I think part of it is just finding that, I don't know if it's just like a right moment or just kind of God knows when it's the right time in your life. It just you get that little kick or you get a little push and you just kind of figure out like it's now or never. That's how I felt with the guitar. I had turned 30 and I was like, it's now or never. And I was tired of telling myself, oh, you just can't do it. It's not for you. It was just that small mental switch that I had in my head. And I was like, just do it. And I just practiced and practiced and practiced. And I wouldn't call myself a good guitar player. Like I'm still learning how to do some bar chords and like I'm still learning music theory and I'm still learning how to finger pick and noodle. Like I'm still adding things as I go, but I learned the basics so I could accompany myself singing because that's what brings me joy is singing. And so I learned what I needed to, and I still have goals with it. I'm still trying to learn, and I take classes every now and then and get on YouTube and try to learn a little bit more. But I'm very proud of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Driven people are always going to have goals. You'll set a goal here and then you'll accomplish it and you'll set a bigger goal. And then you just always just keep growing and, evolving as things get thrown your way. And before you know it, you'll be on bigger stages and be able to tell your story to more people. And, that's how it all works, but drunken karaoke in Okinawa, I think every Marine can literally stand back and say that we've all been on those stages. But have you always been a singer, even growing up as a kid?
A singer?
Mm-hmm.
I would say I've always loved singing, but I was very painfully shy growing up. So I would never sing in front of anybody other than my family. So me and my sisters, or my mom would be around the house singing, and me and my sister would harmonize, and we'd be hanging out just at home. But anytime, like if my sisters both did like talent shows in school, and I was always too scared to get on stage. So no, it wasn't until I was in the Marine Corps where I actually got on a stage and sang in front of people that weren't my family.
And that was the liquid courage.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, at least you got to start somewhere and say, okay, this is what it's going to be like. Yeah. And I know you've found, much healthier outlets these days is good. Positive outlets are good things,
Yes.
Especially when you're steering clear of things that will just make some people's life worse, alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, due to, whatever people may be battling, whether it's anxiety, depression, mental or emotional type issues in their life. A lot of the times, those unhealthy outlets will make things worse. And before you know it, you're in a whirlwind of nightmares trying to pick up the pieces again from, all the success that you have done down the road. You never want to go backwards is not the way to go. Always, forward. But you spent some time in the Marine Corps. And you have battled some post-traumatic stress due to sexual trauma. And really, at the end of the day, I think perhaps what you went through has created the woman you are today and also helped you pick up that guitar in a way to where you can begin to heal yourself. Would you like to elaborate or speak on that?
Yeah, so music has definitely been a healing tool for me, among other things. I like to say my secret recipe is God, nature, and music. When I got out of the Marine, so I had sexual trauma before, during, and after the Marine Corps. I was abducted when I was 19 for a few days in Florida, and that pushed me to join the military. I really wanted to get out of where I was. I wanted to be around people who had honor, courage, commitment as their core values, right? So I wanted to be challenge myself and just be better, do better, be around better people. And then I got to the Marine Corps, and I I struggled with sexual harassment. I was one of like two females in the unit. And it's like they would be normal during working hours, but then like after hours, it would be like it would just switch a flip, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. I was still learning how to stand up for myself. I was still innately shy and kind of timid, and some would say, I guess, naive or gullible. So I was still learning. I was young. I was learning who I was and how to stand up for myself. And I really had to learn that the hard way, unfortunately. Um, I had another sexual assault when I was in Okinawa. And I never told anybody about it while I was in the Marine Corps because I'd seen other women who had reported it, and I'd heard the responses from the males around me that, oh, she's just embarrassed she got caught. She's lying, all these other things. Like nobody ever believes you, and they just tear you apart. And they just expect, oh, you're a female, you're a Marine. Like even in boot camp, they tell you to survive in the Marine Corps, you have to be a bitch or a slut. And I was always like, I don't want to be either one of those. But it's just like this constant kind of battle in that realm, like in that, I'm not sure how to describe it. Anyway, sexual harassment and sexual assault were in the Marine Corps. And then I got married to a guy in the Marine Corps because I didn't think that anybody else would love me. I kind of jumped on the first guy that I dated. He was my first long-term relationship. I dated like a few guys here and there in high school, but it was never serious. And it was never like, sexual. So my first husband was my first serious relationship, and we never really saw each other. It was really good at first. We were in Okinawa. We were like traveling around, exploring the island, having a good time. And then I got out of the Marine Corps, and I got out for him because he wanted me to get out. He wanted us both to get out. And about 6 months later, I had a home invasion. We were in South Carolina at this time. I had a home invasion with a sexual assault while he was away at training, and he said this doesn't happen to normal people, and it kind of broke us. We ended up getting divorced, and that was kind of my breaking point with everything that had happened up to that point in my life. This was the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I turned to alcohol. I moved down to Florida to be near my sister, and I don't remember any of 2010 because I drank it away. Like I was just not in a good place. I was still dealing with everything that had happened and the divorce, and feeling like I'd been like kind of kicked to the curb. So it was just a lot of emotional stress and trauma that I was trying to process, and I wasn't processing it correctly. I wasn't handling it well at all. And I ended up going to an inpatient up in New York, and it was civilian. And I remember that it was the first veteran program that they tried to run, and they didn't do it well. So I ended up leaving that early, and I came back down to South Carolina where my other sister was, and I found a veteran. So I'm sorry, Brian. My brain is not here today. I'm really, really struggling to tell my story, and I don't know what's happening right now. Like,
You're okay. Yeah, what you went through at an early age, all the way up through your Marine Corps career, and then getting out. I mean, having been abducted, to sexual trauma in the military, to getting out and having a home invasion. I mean, these are things that very rarely do happen to people you actually do know. They happen every day in America, tens and thousands, probably times a day. But it's very rare that I've actually now known somebody, that has been through a home invasion. Like, what have you done? And I know a lot of your outlets now is God and faith and family and friends and your guitar and your singing abilities to go out there and really talk about your feelings. What else have you done to help get through some of these trying times in your life?
So without going into too much detail of my story, like with what happened to me, because I don't want to focus on that. I went through a lot of different programs. I knew I wasn't doing well, and I knew I wanted to do better, but I didn't know how. And so I started trying all these different things that people suggested, like inpatient. I went to an inpatient in Texas. I went to veteran retreats. Like nothing ever really felt like it clicked. And the kind of recurrent theme that kept showing up that even made me feel like a slight piece of hope was my music. Like music was always there for me. And so I clung to that. And I started looking more into that as part of like a healing mechanism. And that's why I did the creative vets. And I hiked the Appalachian Trail, and I discovered the healing through nature as I was hiking. And I've always been a Christian. Like I was saved when I was 11, but it was always like God was like this, guy in the sky looking down on us, judging us. And it was never this relationship that I had with him. It wasn't until 2017 when I went out to Colorado that I connected with Advancing Warriors, which is a nonprofit started by one of my friends, Ella Stevens. And it helps veterans and first responders heal through biblical principles. And through that program, I reconnected with God. I found my worth through him. And it was like a huge turning point in my healing. So that was another big one. So with the music and nature, getting into hiking and reconnecting with God and building that relationship, becoming closer with him and seeing him seeing myself through his eyes. So those were like the main things that helped me. And I think that's what's important to focus on is when you're trying to heal, just try a bunch of different things. Like you never know what's going to work for you. Like I know friends who like started playing pool or like started doing archery or started bike riding, or those are all physical things. But I mean, you try everything. I mean, I did a neurofeedback retreat. I did the Odyssey with Warrior. We did like skiing and stuff, which is not for me. But you just try everything, and then you find what works for you, and then you lean into that. And it's a process. It's you're not going to heal overnight because you weren't broken overnight. I don't know. It's a process. And I think especially with my faith, showing myself grace and allowing the bad days to happen and not giving you remove the shame, blame, and guilt from it all. You stop looking at things as black and white, like, oh, I suck, or this is great, like good and bad. You remove those labels. It takes a lot of pressure off, and it leaves space for healing. And I think with the music, I've leaned so far into that, and it's still like my source of joy is God and music and nature. Those are the things that bring me joy, and my family. I love spending time with my family.
Amen. And that's going to bring us to today's show sponsor. If you don't mind, we'll pause 30 seconds, and I think you'll appreciate today's show sponsor. As Barbara was saying, find that outlet, whatever it may be. And our show sponsor is Joyride Center, that is based out in Magnolia, Texas. And what do? Well, they help folks like Barbara and whoever has gone through traumatic type situations in their life through equine therapy services that they provide to veterans and first responders to help treat the post-traumatic stress and the life challenges that they are currently going through. Now, this program being offered is called Operation Equine. Joyride serves veterans through unmounted activities between horses and humans, aimed at rebuilding critical life skills such as reduced anxiety, confidence, improved self-awareness, and communication. This program is focused on the needs of veterans and first responders. The connectivity between a human and a horse is extremely powerful as they feel and recognize human emotions and feelings. And folks, I have been through the program, and that is 100% true. The connectivity is something that you really can't explain until you have your hands on that horse and you are connecting in a way that only you and that horse will really have that, that one-on-one type relationship and communication, that nonverbal communication that is extremely powerful. Joyride is also offering drop-in services for veterans that can't come every week. Say, you got kids, you got a family, you got a full-time job, you can't come through the program. No problem. Joyride is going to be there for you on Mondays from 6 to 7 and Fridays from 7 to 8. All you got to do is contact Regina over at Joyride via email at veteran@joyridecenter.org. That's veteran@joyridecenter.org, or call today 281-356-5900. That's 281-356-5900, or check them out online on their website at joyridecenter.org. Folks, we are back with our guest, Barbara Sims, who is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, as well as a survivor, as well as a singer-songwriter. And she's a tremendous young lady here who is out touring the country. She goes out and she shares stages with other veterans and like-minded individuals across the country. And she sings. She brings her guitar, and she goes out and she participates in events like Hero Stock that she just got done doing just this last month. Now, before we took this break for our show sponsor, you had talked about reconnecting with God. What did that feel like?
So I know at that point in my life, I was really angry with him. I felt let down, like he was supposed to protect me and he didn't. And I felt judged, like I felt unworthy of his love and forgiveness. So there was all kinds of things going on in my mind at the time. But when I went through this program, it's broken down into 8 weeks. It's called Tribe, and you do 8 weeks, and every week you focus on a different theme in the Bible, and how you can address those spiritual warfare and your worth and how God sees you and seeing yourself through his eyes. I think the biggest part of that program that hit home for me was letting go of the guilt and the shame, and seeing those are tools of the devil, and that's how he keeps you further from your purpose. The negative voices in your head, and seeing that as spiritual warfare. That is how the devil fights against you, is telling you these lies about you and lies about the world, and being able to learn the tools through God's, how you fight against that. And so the more you dive into God's truth, the stronger you are against those lies. And so that was a big turning point. And I was able to start believing that I was worth healing, believing that I was worthy of love and forgiveness, and just finding that relationship and strengthening myself through that.
You brought up spiritual warfare. I hear that so often these days. Folks are saying that we are fighting this spiritual battle in our own country as we speak, as you know, our times have definitely changed. And it's tough out there. I mean, life is not easy. Everybody's thrown curveballs in life, but you got to just keep getting, back in that box and swinging away. And hopefully one day someone will throw you a hanging curveball and hit a home run, and you'll be able to tell your story in a positive and effective way that everybody can and will understand. Now, I want to know, when you have these bad days of things not going right, and you feel as if you were being attacked spiritually, how do you combat that? And how do you put your emotions at bay? Is it easy for you to pick up a Bible when you are going through some rough times and read a scripture? Or do you kind of try to fight it in another way that sometimes a lot of people just kind of go and hide for a little bit, or try to go on a walk and just kind of try to put your mind at ease in a different way? Like, how does Barbara kind of digest these bad days or these bad emotions that may come into your life?
That's a good question. So I'm not usually the person to go straight to the Bible when I'm having a bad day, but I do morning Bible study every day, and that's kind of like my I'm blanking on the word. That's how I get ahead of it, or I try to get ahead of it. And I find when I'm lacking on that, like if I don't do Bible study every morning and I'm not in the Word and I don't start my day with Jesus, I find I have more bad days. So it's and when I do have my bad days, it's hit or miss. Sometimes I handle it well, sometimes I don't. I think different factors can play in. I do like to go into nature. That's my favorite part about van life is I can be social and be in the world when I want to. And if I need to go to the woods for a couple of days, I can just kind of go find a campsite somewhere and decompress, just sit in silence and reconnect.
Now, you also live a very unique life. And you pretty much live out of your camper, correct?
Yes, I built out my camper van myself last year. It took me 4 months, so from January to March, I built it out, and then I hit the road May. I said March. It was May 8th is when I hit the road. I've been full-time van life since May of last year.
Has that been healing for you as well, to kind of hit the open road and have that freedom to really not even have an address, to say home is where I lay my head, and tonight I'm laying my head in in a state park or in a rest area on my way to, say, Florida or back to California or up to Oregon? Like, what's it like? What's life like living out of your camp?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people imagine it being like all freewheeling and like, oh, I'm just going with the wind, which sometimes it feels like that, but it still has its challenges. I mean, life is going to have challenges no matter what lifestyle you choose. So I think the biggest challenges for me, planning ahead, especially with my gigs, like trying to book gigs ahead of my time, ahead of my route. When I was living in my apartment, it was very easy for me to just isolate and to keep to myself and not be social. And so in van life, I'm putting myself out into the world. I'm more social in van life. I'm going and I plan my routes along where my friends and family live so I can visit. So I'm visiting friends and family more often. I'm meeting so many different people. I can't sit still for long in van life. And when I live somewhere, like I would always get really like kind of, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, but this is just how I am. I feel stagnant if I'm somewhere too long. And I do appreciate being able to sit still, but that kind of sitting still, like in the moment, like I'll go out in the woods and I'll sit still for a few days, but then I can go somewhere else versus feeling stuck in one location for a long period of time. Like I've found it's usually about 2 to 3 months where I start getting really, really antsy. But that's what I love about van life, is because I can go do things like, and our economy right now is shit, and I was paying way too much money in rent and not being able to do anything that I wanted to do. So it's a happy kind of balance where I'm in my van and my van is my rent, and I'm putting it into my own, like kind of not in my own pocket, but I am paying off my van instead of paying for rent. And I'm able to travel. I'm able to go do stuff. So I'm not having to worry about rent or those kind of bills. I still pay my van payment, insurance, and all that stuff. And my gas prices have gone way up, right? Like in my budget, because I drive more. But all that aside, I've been enjoying it a lot. Like I love being able to just, like I just spent the summer in Alaska, and I got to drive through Canada, and I love Montana, so I got to spend more time there. And I'm just seeing parts of the country, and every part of the country has its own beauty. And I love our country, right? I love exploring it. I love meeting people. I've had some of the coolest conversations, and that's healing to me because I'm challenging myself. Like van life is challenging. Like when I was in Virginia last winter, my pipes busted because I forgot to shut the water off and it got under 36 degrees. And old me would have never thought I'd be able to just like switch out my faucet and replace it myself. So I did that. And to some that might seem small, but for me that was a big deal. Just the fact that I built out the van, like I didn't know how to use any tools when I started. Like I had to learn how to use every tool, and I did that. I built that, and it's not perfect, but I did it. And so those parts of van life where I'm starting to feel more capable. And for many years I just felt worthless and incapable and just stuck. And I'm putting myself in these situations to help myself grow. And I even made a list of skills to learn for my van life. And some of it's very basic, like learn how to change a tire, learn how to change my oil. Some of it's like woodworking and like all these other random skills, like how to plant a garden. When I was up in Alaska, I learned how to plant potatoes, and I worked in Catkin's garden for a little bit. So it's these little skills. Like I want to be able to feel like I'm capable and like I have all these skills and I'm useful. And so those are things that I've been working on, and that's helped to boost my confidence.
Love it. Great healing techniques there that, that you can kind of put to work and jump in your van and, go tour the country and go to places you've never been and sit down and have, meaningful conversations with folks that you've never, came in contact with. And really, when we began this, you were a very shy girl growing up, and now you've kind of broken out of that shell. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think I'm still a little timid, especially in new scenarios and group settings. I'm still out. I'm never the one to be like the big talker. I usually sit back and kind of observe. I'm better with one-on-one and small groups, but I think it's more just a place of my personality than from a place of fear of being timid.
Sure.
So it's just kind of who I am. And I think for a long time, maybe it was afraid out of fear. So it's that growth that's happened, and it's still kind of part of my personality, but it's definitely, I'm much more comfortable just talking to strangers and having conversations with random people. I'm still safe about it, Mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of the times your biggest supporters and your biggest fans will be people you don't even know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So just being able to play music and learning how to tell my story through my song. I'm still working on my songwriting skills, but I feel like I've had such positive feedback that people tell me that their songs or my songs heal them, that my voice is healing, and getting that kind of feedback is really wonderful to hear. Like it boosts your confidence, So it's been just an amazing experience, just being able to share my music and my story in just community with people all over. Like it's expanded my community. So anywhere, I feel like anywhere I go in the U.S. right now, within an hour, I have somebody that I can reach out to.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great network to have. And you said that you are beginning to have better songwriting capabilities. You're improving that part of your life. But from a lot of the singer songwriters that I've actually sat down with here on this podcast, it seems as if a lot of the songs kind of write themselves when you get into that right frame of mind. It's almost like writing a book, and you get in this zone, and all of a sudden you cannot get up because you are so in the zone on what's going on, that a lot of the times the book's going to write itself. The song is going to write itself. And oftentimes it seems as if a lot of the people out there that have been broken or have been through traumatic type situations have a very unique way of telling their story, or to identify, or with other people to identify with your songs because of something that they went through in their own life. And I think that's where the healing aspect comes through, because they can listen to one of your songs and say, oh my gosh, she's talking directly to me. And, the more that they start to listen to the lyrics, if you will, they find out that, wow, this is amazing. And a lot of the times it will help people that are even struggling with their own life challenges. And even though that the song may be deep, very deep, and it may bring back some bad memories or some bad emotions, it's also healing too, because it's not like you're ripping the scab off, but you're remembering and you're thinking about where your life was, and now you're where you're at now. So again, it could be very, like Shannon Book, Dear Mom, a very, very tough song. And it's very hard to listen to, especially if you're a Gold Star family member. But you're keeping the memory alive of a loved one. Or you could even just switch out mom and put in whatever loved one you're sitting there talking to. And it's a very sad and it's a very vulnerable song. But again, you've got to listen to it in the right frame of mind to understand too that it's not always going to be sad. It's the advancement on how far you've come too, a lot of the times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's beautiful about songwriting, well, and I can say songs, it's very, very rare the song will just write itself when I'm trying to write. So I have a process that I have to, like, I'll get ideas and I'll write it down and stuff. But songs don't usually write themselves for me anyway. But I do know people that have that gift. But I love the connectedness that you get through writing songs and sharing your story, because I think that's why it's so important. Like, my story is scary to share because it's very personal, and it's people. There's been negative feedback, and people just, they don't believe you. Oh, that's outlandish, whatever. So it's scary to share your story, but I think it's important to share your story because you connect with people who are out there going through the same thing or similar things, and it helps them feel not so alone. And I think a lot, especially suicide, happens because people feel alone. They don't feel seen or heard, and they feel like they're going through this. Something's innately wrong with me. Everybody else is doing fine, and I'm the one struggling. And I feel like that's kind of what feeds a lot of suicide. And when you share your story and you reach out to people and you're like, no, I was here, I was there. Like, I understand, you're not alone. Like, you can get through this. That's what helps save people.
Yeah. Well, they think, they think that everybody's life is good because that's what they see on social media. But you'll find out that even some of the most successful, happiest people you see out there are still going through a lot of stuff. Everybody has their issues and their baggage and, their demons, if you will. And, everybody has ways of dealing, that a lot of people keep that stuff bottled in, it does take a great deal of courage to come out and to make yourself vulnerable and to say, hey, look, I'm a human. And we all go through struggles in life, and it's how we deal with those struggles that will ultimately define who we are and who we will become, in the future, as we are always trying to make ourselves better. We started, hey, you got a goal, and you get another goal, you get another goal, and you get another goal. And, you said, hey, look, it's not easy for me to write a song. It doesn't come to me like it may come to somebody else. And again, that's what makes everybody different. We all have a different way of doing things and a different way of coping with things, good or bad. Now, when you sit down and you write a song, how long does it take you to write a song?
It depends on the song and on me. Like, I have 3 songs right now I've been working on for like 2 weeks, but I have songs that I've sat down and written within an hour. I have songs I've written in a day. Like, it just depends on the song and how much effort I put into it that day too is important. Because sometimes I'll get an idea and I'll write down, and then I'll get distracted and I'll just go and I'll revisit it and a week later.
Quick question here, because you just put something in my mind. I needed to ask it before I forget. You said you got 3 songs right now you're writing over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How can you stay engaged and on point on 3 different songs? How do you process that with your brain to say, okay, well, I've got 3 different songs, 3 different avenues here. How can I turn my mind on to song A without thinking about song C when I'm trying to get song A or B done? How do you process that?
Well, when I sit down to write, and I've been trying to write every morning because I'm also working on 2 books right now. So I have my writing time that I block out. And I kind of I'll start reading through a book, or I'll start reading through one of the songs, and whichever one kind of like calls to me at that moment, that's the one I'll focus on. And then once I'm focused on that, I'm focused on that. Like, I don't get distracted on the other ones.
Where have you found the best setting for Barbara to sit down and write a song?
In the quiet, like when I'm in my van, it's pretty easy. It just has to be quiet.
So you could just do this in the back of your van somewhere quiet. You don't want to like find this like peaceful lake with trees and birds flying around and just kind of look out and just kind of put yourself into this realm of peace, if you will, and serenity and tranquility. Is that something that you've done and experienced as well?
Absolutely. But I think that just comes down to being inspired versus the just the profession of it. So when you're just focusing and like you have a job to do, like, you want to write this many songs in this amount of time, you focus and you just create the space. So I just need a quiet space, and then I'll focus on the song and I'll work on it. Versus like I really want to feel inspired, so I'll go find a beautiful location. Like I had so many songs that I wrote on the Appalachian Trail, just sitting by a lake or somewhere beautiful, like with a good view. And like I was in Colorado, and I had this camp for 4 days that I fasted for 4 days, and I did my Bible study, and some good songs came out of that. So I don't know. I don't think there's a one size fits all. I don't really have like a set. This works for me. Not yet, anyway. I don't know if I will, but at the moment.
For our listeners out there, I want you to paint a picture. I want you to describe the inside of your living space that you call your van.
Okay. My living space is, so I went with a cozy cabin with like a beachy feel. My favorite colors are turquoise and yellow. So when you first walk in, there's a bench seat with a yellow cushion and a little succulent pillow with a sunflower pillow. There's a mirror and some faux plants on a shelf. And then I have turquoise cabinetry with butcher block tabletop. And I have a little mini fridge, 2-burner propane stove, a sink, and the counter. And then I've got, the counters up top. And then I've got a big bed with a big fluffy white comforter on it, lots of pillows because I like coziness. And then I have little, mostly all of the left side of my van when you're facing the back of it is bookshelves because I like to read. So I've got a long bookshelf above my bed, and then I've got like a short stack bookshelf over my dresser / bedside table. So yeah, and then I have like little twinkly lights all across the top of it that I turn on when I'm relaxing.
So it's a fairly large van then.
How many feet is it? It's 18 feet long. It's a Ram ProMaster 136 wheelbase high roof. So I can stand, I'm 5'2", I can stand up and put my hands up and touch the ceiling.
So is there like a bathroom in it too, or?
I have a Nature's Head composting toilet that is tucked underneath my bench seat. And I have like a mini, I call it my Hobbit shower because it's like a half shower. There's no hot water. I was going to have hot water, but I'm not good at wiring electrical, and I messed up my 120 outlets. So I just have DC for like my fridge and my lights and my water pump and all that. And then I just use my EcoFlow generator for all my 120 volt needs. So if I want to use my air fryer or my blow dryer or charge my computer or anything like that, I use my heated blanket, which is really important in the wintertime because I don't have heat. I just have a vent fan. So I get airflow. But if I want cool air, like if it's summer, I have like a little mini swamp cooler. And then in the summer or in the winter, I have my heated blanket. And then I also have a Mr. Buddy heater, but I don't sleep with the Mr. Buddy heater on because that will kill you. So
sure. Yeah. You don't want to get like carbon monoxide poisoning or anything like that when, in the winter, when you're running heat and, have proper ventilation and all that other stuff. Where do you plan on going from here?
So my next leg is South Carolina to see my other sister because I'm currently in Virginia with my younger sister. And then I'm going to go see my other sister in South Carolina. And my storage unit is there where I have like a very small unit with like all my books and vinyl record collection and things like that. And I collect things on my travels. Like I have way too many coffee mugs and things like that. So when I get back in South Carolina, I kind of put things back in there that I don't really need. And I go through my clothes and I'm like, I don't need all these. So every time I go through there, I downsize and put stuff in my storage unit.
Yeah, it's a dumping ground. Okay, I don't need this anymore. Maybe one day when I have a house and I stop living out of my camper.
Yeah, it's gonna be like Christmas when I get an apartment again
you're like, oh wow, I forgot I even had this.
So yeah, and then after South Carolina, I've got some gigs in Tennessee. So I'm playing Crafty Bastard Brewing in Knoxville, Tennessee on the 20th from 7 to 10 p.m. if y'all are in the area. And then I'm going to go to Nashville. I'm doing a Guitars for Vets event with a bunch of other veterans So I'll play a couple songs there on the 25th. And then on the 29th, I'll be in Columbia, Tennessee at Tilted Mule for a gig there, I think 5 to 8. That's a costume party. So wear your costume if you're coming. And then I'm going to go over to Memphis to see a friend for Halloween. And then I'll be going down to Alabama to see family down there and play some gigs. And then down to Florida for probably all of December. I'm aiming for Christmas in the Keys.
Man, that sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't been back to Florida in a while, but I've got family there that I want to see. So that's the beauty of fan life is I have family and friends everywhere. So getting to travel around means I get to see them more. And I remember thinking one time, because me and my mom were always separated, I was like, my mom might live to I think the average for our family is around 85. So she's 60 now. And I did the math and I was like, I'm only going to get to see her 20 or 30 more times if I only see her once a year. And that was so depressing to me. If you think about that, if you're only going to see your mom 20 or 30 more times.
That's a very deep way to look at something. Man, I never looked at life like that.
Yeah. So I just try to see her as much as I can.
That's very eye-opening.
Yeah.
I've never heard that in all my 46 years. See, look. How about a podcast? You get to talk to people you never talk to. Learn new things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really will put the value of life into perspective.
The value of time. Because it's easy in day-to-day life to get caught up in the rush of it and forget that you only get to see these important people in your life so many times. And some people are very blessed. They live right down the road from their mama and get to see them every day. And hopefully they don't take that for granted either.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very unique way to, you stay grounded that way, I bet, too, a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a veteran thing or just a thing, but some people just realize how short life is. I think, especially with veterans and who've seen more death at a young age than they should, it kind of opens your eyes to how precious life is.
Absolutely. Yes, it's very, very precious. I got 4 kids, a wife of 25 years. So, I mean, when it comes to the sensitivity and, to my family and, my daughters, my sons, and, my wife, and, it does put a lot of things into perspective. And of course, the military, the protectors in us, we only want the best for our country and our family and our friends. And a lot of the times, like you say, you get caught up in the hustle bustle of life, and before you know it, you blink and boom, you got a 30-year-old kid.
And make sure you don't blame yourself oh, I suck, I'm failing at life because I'm getting caught up in this. So I've met a lot of friends and family that kind of self-deprecate or self-hate because of that. So you can recognize where you can do better without punishing yourself.
Yeah, but you know what? It's called providing for your family, and I know what you mean about that. I used to run so hard as well, and owning a small business, and you're like, man, I've missed so much, but because I missed so much, I was able to provide this to my family that they wouldn't have had. If it wasn't for the sacrifice of a parent that cares, and a parent that only wants the best for their family and their children to live the life perhaps that they didn't live growing up, and that's very important too, so everybody has a job, if you will, in this walk in life. And it is a short walk when you look at it in perspective of the world and how long it's been around. And, you never know when that moment may be taken away from you. And
your role can evolve over time too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Barbara, it's been great getting to know you a little bit. And, perhaps maybe one day you come down to the Houston, Texas area. I'll be able to come out and support one of your shows and shake your hand and, meet and listen to your songs. And again, support what you're doing out there in the veteran and military community, as well as in the civilian world as well. Your music is for everybody. And I know it's very well liked by a lot. I've heard your name, thrown around a few times as somebody that should come on my show that is very well deserving of being heard, and has a great story of perseverance and resilience. And you've done everything you can to stand up in the face of that adversity, to say, hey, no more. I'm taking my life back, and I'm going to get 1% better every single day. And you have not veered off that course. So for that, we are proud of you.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Brian.
Yes, ma'am. And with that, folks, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the program. It has never been easier to listen to this podcast. We're on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TikTok, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Simply search Today with Tally. Also, learn more about me and my personal story, and even perhaps get one of my new books at briantally.com. Folks, remember to always stay inspired, stay encouraged, stay motivated, and always stay in the fight. Until next time, for the Today with Tally podcast, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God bless.